They were having a terrible time before he was elected. But now, with the price well above $65 to a barrel, which was their break-even point, they're doing really very well. In fact, when I said that they're doing almost too well, they're a bit worried. They would like a price of around 90, 95, because anything above that is seriously hurting the working class.
Look, if you want to see the absolute matrix of global politics completely broken down in under 5 minutes, you need to watch this exchange. Piers Morgan and economist Yanis Varoufakis pull no punches here, dissecting the exact mechanics of who actually profits from a geopolitical quagmire and who gets left holding the bill. Before we play the clip, do me a huge favor and hit that subscribe button right now so we can finally reach our 1K subscriber milestone and grow this community. Let's roll it.
Where the hell are we with this war?
It depends when you're standing. The plutocracy which is surrounding Donald Trump is having a very good Iranian war, an excellent one, maybe too good for them. Of course, the vast majority of the people who put him in the White House are having a terrible time. So, as I said, it depends on where you're standing. The recovery that you mentioned in your introduction has already happened if you're a financier. If you are dealing in shares in the Magnificent Seven, the AI splurge has been momentous. If you are a fracker in New Mexico or in Texas, you are laughing all the way to the bank because, the fracking business, which is the mainstay of the Trump supporters amongst the oilmen in the Permian Basin, you know about all this. They were having a terrible time before he was elected. But now, with the price well above $65 to a barrel, which was their break-even point, they're doing really very well. In fact, when I said that they're doing almost too well, they're a bit worried. They would like a price of around 90, 95, because anything above that is seriously hurting the working class, who have to spend an additional $400, $500 a month on average to travel to work, only to travel to work. And that really is stressing them, and it's putting a downer on demand for Permian Basin oil. So it's a mixed bag. The many are suffering, the few are making a lot of money. And, it's a toss-up as to whether this is going to prove Trump's Waterloo, because the MAGA base is going at some point to say enough, or whether, the increasing support that he's getting from the plutocrats around him, because of their great influence that they have over the voter base, will see him through.
All right, let's pause it right there. I want to look closely at the deep structural insight Varoufakis just dropped, because he is breaking down a massive internal contradiction within the political system. Piers asks a straightforward question about where things stand, and Yanis completely flips the narrative. He says it entirely depends on where you are standing. If you look at the top tier, the Washington bureaucracy surrounding the administration and the big energy frackers in Texas and New Mexico, they are having an absolute field day. Why? Because the price of oil has cleared their break-even point and is sitting comfortably past $100 a barrel, for them, this conflict is a financial goldmine. But then look at the other side of the exchange. Yanis reveals the brutal math for the actual working class base. Regular people are bleeding an extra $400 to $500 a month just to commute to work. That is the true deep insight here. The establishment has engineered a situation where their own billionaire donors are making historic profits off the instability, while the everyday citizens who put them in office are the ones paying the literal price at the pump. It's a neither war nor peace equilibrium that keeps the elites rich and the campaign donations flowing while completely draining the working class. Let's play the rest of the exchange, because what they say next about how China is effortlessly capitalizing on this trap is a masterclass in global strategy. Watch this.
Obviously, President Trump is going to see President Xi in China, planned for the end of this week. Many people think one of the biggest winners of this Iran war are China, notwithstanding the fact that they are the country which has the most stuff come through the Strait of Hormuz. Is that your take on it?
Oh, absolutely. They're winning hands down. China needs to do absolutely nothing and win at every level. At the level of energy, even though there is the problem that you mentioned, that they have been receiving very large proportion of the oil from the Gulf, from the Strait of Hormuz. But nevertheless, Piers, we must not forget the immense investment China has put into electricity, into solar panels in particular, and wind power, but primarily solar panels. So now we have a very large chunk of the planet which is moving away from fossil fuels. I mean, even countries like Pakistan and Ethiopia, I don't know whether you heard that, Ethiopia banned the importation of all fuel-driven cars, bikes, trucks. Pakistan has become an electrostate. I mean, they don't need the main power generation that other countries need. So, China is winning from that because this is their long-term bet. Electric cars, solar panels, shifting away from fossil fuels. But also, when it comes to everything else, because, China can now play the role of the adult in the room. They are not flip-flopping like Trump is. They, once they have signed a contract, a long-term contract for delivery of whatever, they fulfill it. They don't go back on the terms. And when it comes to international law, Trump has gifted them the opportunity to present themselves, to present Beijing as the great custodian of international law.
Do you get the feeling, Yanis, that if he could get out of this war right now, Donald Trump would do that, but that he can't find an off-ramp which looks like any kind of victory, and in fact would look like a defeat, a humiliation, if, for example, the Iranians refuse to hand over the enriched uranium, if they refuse to have any draconian restrictions on their nuclear capabilities, if they maintain some kind of control or sovereignty over the Strait of Hormuz, if all those things remain implacable and they don't concede them to the Americans, and the Americans have to, for political and economic reasons, get out of this, it would be seen as a failure.
He's caught between two stools, isn't he? I mean, it's what we were saying last time we spoke. I have no idea what drove him to attack Iran, because it was clear that he would end up in this quagmire. So on the one hand, exactly as you say, if he now does a Trump and chickens out, then, the taco stigma is going to become even more evident. And that may be detrimental to his chances in the midterms in November. But then again, how else can he reverse from that quagmire? Maybe he's going to try to prolong this neither war nor peace equilibrium, or semblance of an equilibrium that he's managed to achieve now. I mean, financially, it's working out quite well for him. As I said before, the price of oil is just above 100. It's not 150 or 200. His mates are making a lot of money. Maybe they will help him in the midterms with his political campaigning. This is a terrible situation in which he finds himself in. And this is why, remember last time we spoke, I declared my total incomprehension as to why he allowed himself to be lured by Netanyahu into this. But once he's there, I think now he's stuck.
Now this is really interesting, guys. What we just saw at the end of that exchange is the literal definition of a geopolitical checkmate. Piers Morgan hits on the core dilemma. The administration has absolutely no viable off-ramp. If they try to pull out of the conflict now, it looks like a humiliating political defeat. Why? Because, as Piers rightly points out, Iran isn't conceding a single thing. They aren't handing over enriched uranium, they aren't accepting nuclear restrictions, and they still maintain absolute sovereignty over the Strait of Hormuz. And Yanis's response is devastating. He openly states his total incomprehension as to how the administration allowed itself to be lured straight into this trap by Benjamin Netanyahu in the first place. Now, they are completely stuck. If they de-escalate, they lose face with their hawkish establishment. If they ramp it up, they completely bankrupt their own voters. But the biggest takeaway from their conversation is, who wins by doing absolutely nothing? China. While the US is burning massive economic and military credibility trying to manage a volatile standstill in the Middle East, Beijing gets to sit back and play the stable adult in the room. Yanis points out that China doesn't flip-flop. They honor long-term contracts, and they've spent years quietly investing in solar and electric infrastructure in places like Pakistan and Ethiopia. They are actively decoupling from the very fossil fuel networks the West is trapped fighting over. This exchange proves that when the establishment gets lured into foreign entanglements, the empire bleeds credibility, the working class bleeds money, and global competitors take over without firing a single shot. Drop your thoughts on this Varoufakis breakdown in the comments below, smash the like button, and I'll see you guys in the next one. You are watching Floor Leader Insider. Take care, guys.